Hey, it's MK, and I thought that I would do a scrap layout today. I know I haven't done a few of those in a while, but I wanted to show you guys what I have as far as what I picked out. So the first thing, I already photoed my mats, which technically I did, but I already put my mats on photos, and this is all out of scraps. So I made these photo mats a long time ago. It's these ones all right here. So I make these when I do mini albums, and I basically take the cutoffs, because I use 12 by 12 paper. I take the cutoffs and anything that is left over that's of decent size, I create photo mats with. And then of course I take some not so great white cardstock, and sometimes I have white cardstock scraps and I'll start trimming those down. Sometimes I don't, but usually I use these to fill up the photo mat. So basically I'm using my scraps to fill up, not the photo mat, the mini album. And then of course it gets too chunky, and so I end up with a bunch. So that's one scrap that I used. I used 2 of those. And then I also had this piece left over. I think this was left over from a retreat that we went to, and we did a class with Christina Sorge, and I think this is photo play paper. So I have that scrap left over, and then I had a bunch of these embossed circles, and oh, there we go. And so my cardstock is white core, so I sanded them all, and I have different embossings. This one was ran through a corrugated little machine where it makes it look like it's corrugated. And so I have a honeycomb, I have all different kinds, and then these were cut from scraps that I had when I go through my die cut machine. I pull it out, and then I take my scraps and I just run it through with a bunch of dies. These are those little 2x2 like Project Life cards, the little 2x2 ones, and I basically just cut out, I have one here, and then this one was cut using a punch. So one was hand cut and the other one was using a punch, and they are neutral on one side and then very colorful on the other side. That's how they came. And so I just am choosing to use the neutral. This is going to be a very black and white layout except for the photos. These little scraps here were left over from one of my paper pumpkin kits, and I just had a bunch, and they are also corrugated. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. And so I plan on adding those. These little circles are left over various, oh wow, yeah, lots and lots of different projects, and I just pulled out every black and gray circle that I had, which included all of these. And then I have bottle caps, and so I smush my bottle caps in my manual die cut machine and get them to come out super flat. So I do that. And then this one is actually from, so it didn't turn out very well. I actually had to kind of manually and it didn't work because I didn't want to keep scratching up my thing, and it says not your father's. And so it will get tucked so it doesn't look all wonky. But anyways, and then this is from an old Teresa Collins chipboard sheet that I had at one point in time. Not sure what collection it came from. But anyways, those are all the bits and pieces. I also, 2 more things. I wanted to show you how I did this because A, I'm stubborn, so I did not look it up online, and I've seen this done before lots of times. There's lots of layout examples using this this little doing this with the circles, making them into squares, which is weird, but I wanted to do it. So I want to show you how I ended up doing that, and then how I did not end up doing that, and then also too, because of the I guess the roses, because of these, I decided I wanted to do some stitching. So I pulled out this really old template by Amy Tan. You can see it better without my hand. And I'm going to stitch a couple of these leaves, and maybe just one or both. But I pulled out my needle. I pulled out my my threader, And then I also pulled out my my really old embossing thread. Okay, and I have a ton of these, so I have to use them up. So I probably won't bore you with the stitching, but that will probably be the first thing that I do, is figure out where I want my leaves and how many leaves, and leaves, and then do that. But I wanted to show you guys really quickly where I, how I did my circles. And I kept my, because there were scraps, I kept the one that I was playing around with, the one that I was testing with. And the first thing that I did was, I thought that I was going to be able to just put it right here and score it where I eyeballed, and I thought it was going to work. And come to find out, it didn't work, because I scored it too short and it all like lifted up, so they overlapped, and I didn't want it to overlap. And I thought, well, when I put it on my glass mat, it looks like it fits in the 2-inch. How come it didn't work? You know? And so I tried it again. Well, then I took my 2-inch ruler. Where did it go? Right here. Then I took my 2-inch ruler and I stuck it up against one edge where it corner to corner, and then I started bending it and twisting it, and then it was too far from the edge, and I thought, oh, but it was 2 inches. What the hey? I couldn't figure it out. So I finally took a scrap piece of paper and I started with the 2-inch, and I put it on here, and I thought, oh, the corners stick out. That doesn't work. So I trimmed off a little bit more, and I trimmed off about, I think it's, yeah, it's 1 7/8. So it's 1/8 of an inch smaller than 2 inches. And then what I did was, on my scoreboard, I drew a line down where the center is. I just took a, one of those, oh, what are they called? It's a marker made for slick surfaces, but they weren't the alcohol markers back in the day. They were like slick writers. Ha! I got it. So I took a slick writer and I just drew a line on where my half of the board was. Why? I don't know. It's never been useful, but I'm glad I did, because now I can take this square, put it corner to corner in all, you know, it doesn't matter if the circle is up and down, because which way is up and down on a circle. And I lined it up with this line, because if I was to have picked any other line, I wouldn't have been able to see, you know, because they're so thin and so close together. I could have went from this one and then jumped over to the other one without even realizing it. So I'm grateful that I had this line drawn, and I just took my bone folder and went up and down that line all the way around all of my circles. And then I took my sanding block and sanded her up, and now she's a really cute circle. But of course I won't be using this one because it is totally mangled, which is fine. I'm good to go. I just wanted to show you guys how I ended up doing it. I'm pretty sure there's YouTube videos all over the place on how to truly do it, but that is how I did it, because I was lazy and didn't want to look it up. So I am going to get started with my layout. I kind of sort of already know how I want this layout to go. I just need to figure out where I want my leaves to go, and then kind of mark them, and then I'm going to have to move everything out of the way and start stitching. So yeah, or maybe I could poke through. I know I want this over here, and the reason is because where this lives in my layout, the photos are going to be facing another page, and so I am facing this way, and so I wanted the design on this side, so I knew that. That's why that is there, and then everything's going to go this way to face the next page. So just to let you know what's going on. Okay, and then I have 7 of these little flowers. I had more, but I had to tell myself to stop. And I'm only going to have 2, well, possibly 3 clusters, but because of these little guys that I picked out, I'm only going to have like 2 main clusters and then a little accent cluster is what I'm going to do. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is actually kind of set up the layout how I want it, only because I need to know where I'm going to do my stitching. So this is kind of sort of a small process, and looking back at it, I should have anyways, I should have made it just a little bit faster, only because I bring in almost all the elements. No, I think I bring in all the elements in all honesty, just so that way I can see where I want the stitching to go. So here is just me laying everything out. I took that, the photo of my toolbox, I actually cut off one side of the photo mat in order for it to look like it is coming from the edge of the page. I kind of sort of do that just to give it a little bit of interest instead of the photo mat being at the edge of the page. It's the photo. Anyways, and I did notice that in my fumbling of supplies, that when I was telling you how I put the photos on photo mats, I kept saying that I put the photo mats on photos. So that was quite funny. I got a giggle out of myself on that one. But anywho, this is basically all I'm doing is trying to get an idea. I don't put down everything, but I am trying to get an idea of where I want everything. Oh, and then I take a picture and never reference it back. That's fun. My brain says to do it this way, and then my other brain says, oh, you don't need it. You can remember. Yeah, everybody does. So actually, it's quite funny. When I'm done doing the layout, I do reference it to see how close I was. Anyways, I am marking with, at first I thought I was going to be able to poke it with my needle because I'm lazy. But I grab my Pick It Up tool by Stampin' Up, and I go through and I poke out everything. And as I am doing that, I basically move the embellishments when I get to that spot before actually clearing them all out. So, oh, there's my messy hair. Wonder if I brushed it that morning. Anyways. So I'm just going to glue the striped piece down for right now because that piece is actually going to have a leaf on top of it. I'm not sure if you noticed when I do. I'm just going to thread my needle. I am using all 6 layers of embroidery floss, I think is what it's called. Yeah. I just love how bulky it is. I love the texture of it when you're done, when I'm done back stitching here. So, but that's all I'm doing is I'm back stitching all of these leaves. Now, this is the first time I've actually used the leaf portion. And so, yeah, the very first one I did kind of have to backtrack just a hair, but not a big deal. I think they turned out great. And I'm taking this ribbon. Now, this is the last bit of scrap that I have of this ribbon, and I actually get to stretch it across 2 layouts. I'm so super excited about that. So I used Scor-Tape on the front, and then I'm going to hold it back on the back of my layout with just some washi tape that I'm pretty much, bored with using on layouts. I can't say that they aren't my favorite layouts or washi tape, but yeah, it's just that I'm getting bored with using it on layouts. So anyways, I like the ribbon to look like it wrapped around the layout rather than cutting it right off at the layout, because then it starts to fray even though you used Scor-Tape. So now I'm going to place all my pieces back together. Now, one of the things that I did do, so that way I don't make you guys watch me glue all of these squares down, is I've already put Scor-Tape on the backs of them. So all I have to do is lift them up and place them wherever I decided that's where they were going to go. So I think I get pretty close. I try the corrugated piece down there at the bottom, and then I remember it goes at the top. Silly goose. Yeah, and I'm just trying to remember where everything goes, but I have to put my squares down before I get too carried away. So here's where I, put my Scor-Tape down. And the reason why I'm not using my ATG, for one, when you emboss a piece of paper, it does become very textured. At least the embossing folders that I have, they are very, very textured, and regular double-sided tape just does not seem to do it for me. So I either use liquid adhesive or I use my Scor-Tape. And, I buy my Scor-Tape in bulk. In case you guys are curious, I can link where I do purchase it. But I do prefer getting it in bulk because, one, it's a lot of money up front, but two, it's a lot cheaper when you add it all together in the discount that she gives you. So I'll go ahead and include that in my description, so that way you guys know where I get my bulk Scor-Tape. And the different sizes that she offers is pretty cool too. I do like that. I usually get my, try and true 1/4 inch, and then I do a variety pack. She has a variety pack available. Anywho, I am just, I sound like an infomercial about Scor-Tape. I'm just doing my squares. I have no idea why I pulled out that ruler and made sure that the tip of it was even. Yeah, that didn't make any sense to me when I was rewatching this, but hey, you never know. So yeah, and that's me like super excited about how it looks. I love it. Oh my gosh. I never realized how expressive my hands were until I started watching, record myself. Never had any clue of how expressive they were. Anyways, so I'm just kind of making sure that everything goes back the way that I kind of sort of had it. I brought in that big flower for some reason and realized, nope, that doesn't go there, and tossed it off to the side. It doesn't get used. Surprise. In case you're wondering. I don't end up using all of the roses that I picked out for this. I do have quite a bit of these roses, only because, like I said, in the introduction, when I pull out my big die cut machine, my manual one, I actually just sit there and I cut and I cut and I cut all of my scraps. And so I have a wide variety. If I have a whole bunch of green, then I'm cutting up a whole bunch of leaves. If I have a whole bunch of gray, then I'm probably cutting up a whole bunch of gears, stuff like that. It's colors that I normally use, and, images that I know I will use in that color. And so I just know how I scrapbook, so I already know that I'll be okay with an abundance of those. Plus, it's kind of cool to put together a little embellishment pack and send a cute little gifty to a friend. So I enjoy doing that as well. And again, I am just laying the stuff back down, laying the roses and the images. I really, really love these delicate roses put on top of this, I don't know if it's an industrial like page or industrial themed page. I'm not really sure. I just think that the roses soften it up, but not too much, because they have no color. They have no shading to it. And so I don't know. I just really enjoyed mixing up, the different elements and stuff, and making a unique scrapbook page, in all honesty. So, and the stitching, it was a great inspiration. I do remember that there was a challenge. Why on earth did I want to do stitching? Anyways, I can't remember now. This layout was done back in June. And so, yeah, I was wanting to use up all of my scraps. My scrap shapes, not just scraps, but my scrap shapes, like circles and squares and things like that. Something that most of these shapes came from, like the inner workings of a die cut, or the inner workings of a die cut. But you know what I mean? They are leftovers from something that I had used before. In fact, I ended up making quite a few layouts using up all of my shapes to do stuff like this. So to do layouts like this, not stuff like this. But yeah, almost done. The roses, I'm only putting glue where the rose will touch the flaps, the little folded over pieces that I had from the circles. I don't want to glue the roses down completely. I want them to look like they're floating. And if I only glue them to the flaps, then the flaps are going to want to pop up slightly. And then that way that'll give that rose a little bit of dimension. Now on these bottle caps, I do have to use, what's it called? I do have to use foam because they are slightly demented. Yep, they are demented. No, I'm the demented one. They're dimensional, but then they're not solid on the back. So if you noticed, I had to add 2 pieces of foam inside this black one right here just to even get it to touch the page. And if I would have been thinking correctly, I have something called zip line. No, I think it's called zip glue. And that stuff adheres metal to paper like no one's business. It's crazy. But I very rarely use it because it seems like as soon as you cut the top off, if you don't sit there and continuously use that bottle, then it dries up instantly. And so I very rarely reach for that one. I thought it was going to be my go-to glue for a while, and then I thought, no, I don't like how it worked. So anyways, finishing touches, I am going to do a mix of black enamel dots on the white portion and white enamel dots on the striped portion, just to give it that little bit of contrast between black and white. And then I thought, as a tiny little pop of color, I'm going to use some enamel dots in the same yellow, well, close to the same yellow that matched the toolbox. I just thought that it would be kind of cool that I put in a little bit of yellow. And then once the layout was done, I almost went back and wanted to put yellow behind the roses, like make it look like they're watercolored. And then I thought, no, that wasn't the point. I wanted a black and white layout. I really didn't want to do the color, but that toolbox stood out so much that I wanted to at least add a few pops of yellow. And they're very, very small pops. So here is the finished layout. I hope you guys enjoyed. As usual, I ramble and ramble and ramble, but I enjoy sharing my process with you guys. I tried to take that bottle cap of Not Your Father's and make it a better circle than what I had it before, but it was smushed and it didn't come out as well as I was hoping it would. But hey, it's my scrapbook. No one else is going to judge, right? So thanks for watching, and I hope you guys come back soon. See ya.